Good morning. It's good to be here and to be with you. I'm Dale Kimbler, and I'm a member of the UU Fellowship of Clemson's Worship Associate team. Each week, this community comes together to participate in worship, music, and reflection. This is where we seek to have our hearts open and our imaginations fired. This is the place that reminds us that we are deeply connected to one another and all living things. Even though our building is closed, we gather together for weekly online worship. At 11:30 on Sunday mornings, we also gather for social connection and the sharing of joys and concerns in our Zoom meeting. Please join us. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. This fellowship is a religious community grounded in the heritage and principles of Unitarian Universalism. We seek to create loving community, inspire joy and spiritual growth, and support courageous action. All are welcome, regardless of religious background, political persuasion, ethnicity, age, ability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression. If you have a desire to explore questions of truth and meaning, and are respectful of our diversity of people and beliefs, you found kindred spirits here. If you'd like more information about this fellowship or Unitarian Universalism, please see information about us on our website, uufc.org. If you're interested in getting our weekly newsletter so you can get connected to our community for online social events, our weekly sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local social justice work, please reach out to the office by the email on our website. Now, let us begin our worship with these words by Kimberly Tomchak Carlson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home. Welcome to worship.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Thank you, Dell, for those opening words. I'm the Reverend Christina Branum-Martin, and I'm the interim minister here at the fellowship. It is so good to be with you today. At this time, I invite you to gather your chalice at home as I light ours. This morning we join with 1,000+ other Unitarian Universalist congregations to begin worship with the lighting of a chalice. This marks the beginning of our time together. Let us share in the words of the affirmation spoken each week by this fellowship. We gather in the spirit of love with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. And now comes the sharing of our joys and concerns. What I have with me is a bowl of water and river stones. The journey of life brings pleasures and pains, satisfactions and regrets. And as persons who are seeking truth and meaning, our everyday task is one of honoring such experiences, as well as integrating them. We fit the pieces together, and in doing so, find the larger shape our lives are reaching towards. And part of this process of making meaning can be the rituals of joys and concerns to which we now turn. For this morning's ritual, I have water and I have river stones, and the stones are smooth and they have weight. They're indicative of both life's pleasures and times of ease, as well as life's burdens and a time of heaviness. I share one stone for joy, for those in this community who welcomed a new granddaughter into the world this week. I share another for a joy, for those who have traveled this past week for the first time since the pandemic. They went to see their adult children whom they missed very, very much. This stone of concern is for those amongst us who are grieving. We hold you deeply in our hearts. And I share this stone for those in our community who are struggling with the demands of being a teacher right now. May you all stay healthy and find perseverance in this trying time. And I share this stone for all of us who hold anxiety about divisions and the possibilities of civil unrest in the near future surrounding the upcoming election. May love guide us all towards reconnection to each other as neighbors. And I add this final stone for those concerns held silently in our hearts, and our joys, which bring us smiles on our daily basis. May all our thoughts and prayers today be held in this loving community. The Big Orange Splat by Daniel Manus Pinkwater. Mr. Plumbean lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way. So did everyone else on Mr. Plumbean's street. "This is a nice street," they would say. And then, one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbean's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint. No one knows why. And he dropped the can, no one knows why, right over Mr. Plumbean's house. It made a big orange splat on Mr. Plumbean's house. "Ooh, too bad," everyone said. "Mr. Plumbean will have to paint his house again." "I suppose I will," said Mr. Plumbean. But he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange splat for a long time, and then he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange splat. Someone said, "Mr. Plumbean, we wish you'd get around to painting your house." "Okay," said Mr. Plumbean. He got some blue paint and some white paint, and that night he got busy. He painted at night because it was cooler, and when the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange splat was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got some red, yellow, green, and purple paint. And in the morning, the other people on the street came out of their houses. Their houses were all the same, but Mr. Plumbean's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was an explosion. There was the big orange splat, and there were little orange splats, and there were stripes, and there were pictures of elephants and lions and pretty girls and steam shovels. And the people said, "Mr. Plumbean has popped his cork. He's flipped his lid, blown his stack, dropped his stopper." They went away muttering. That day Mr. Plumbean bought carpenter tools, and that night he built a tower on top of his roof, and he painted a clock on top of the tower. The next day the people said, "Mr. Plumbean has gushed his mush, lost his marbles, and slipped his hawser." They decided they would pretend not to notice. That very night Mr. Plumbean got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, baobabs, thorn bushes, onions, and frangipani. And in the morning he bought a hammock and an alligator. When the other people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbean swinging in the hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator lying in the grass. Mr. Plumbean was drinking lemonade. "Mr. Plumbean has gone too far. This used to be a neat street." "Plumbean, what have you done to your house?" the people shouted. "My house is me and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," Mr. Plumbean said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbean to go and have a talk with him. "Tell him that we all liked it here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours, so we can have a neat street." The man went to see Mr. Plumbean that evening. They sat underneath the green palm trees drinking lemonade and talking all night long. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber and rope and nails and paint. And when the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship next door to the house of Mr. Plumbean. "What have you done to your house?" they shouted at the man. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," said the man who had always loved ships. "He's just like Mr. Plumbean," the people said. "He's got bees in his bonnet, bats in his belfry, and knots in his noodle." Then, one by one, they went to see Mr. Plumbean late at night. They would sit under the palm trees and drink lemonade and talk about their dreams. And whenever anybody visited Mr. Plumbean's house, the very next day, that person would set about changing his own house to fit his own dreams. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbean and his neighbors, the strangers would say, "This is not a nice, neat street." Then all the people would say, "Our street is us, and we are it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all our dreams."
There is more love somewhere
Mara Smiley. Thank you, Liam, Jen, Renee, and Daniel. See you next time. Thank you.
I came to UUFC almost 7 years ago looking for community and a spiritual home, and I found it. This is where I met Andy, and we were married here. Working in this fellowship is very important to me. My contribution to the fellowship started with operating the sound system at Sunday services, which is how Andy and I met, and serving on the worship committee. Years later, I even found satisfaction in something as dull as chairing a policy and bylaws committee. Doing things in the fellowship is part of why I'm here, and I'm happy that Andy and I can serve as stewardship co-chairs. What I take away from the fellowship, what I enjoy, is just as important to me. And the sense of community and what we do is at the top of my list. I've made new friends here that'll be part of me for the rest of my life. Sharing principles and beliefs is part of this too. This is part of what makes the fellowship so important. It makes me keep on working as part of it. I look forward to doing this for as long as I'm able. Andy?
And I came to UUFC the summer of 2009. I didn't want to come, but a friend was visiting who belonged to a UU up in Maryland, and she wanted to check out the local fellowship. And at her insistence, I came along. Until that day, I'd never really felt I was a part of anything. My background is Jewish, and although I've always felt proud of being a Jew, I never seriously practiced it or any other belief. I expected that first sermon to be a half hour of pure boredom, replete with religious references and a couple of hymns. It was anything but. The minister talked about life and current issues of the day and how folks were handling things or not handling them. After the service in the social room, we spoke with folks. Even though they were from many different places, from different points of view, I found we had so much in common. It was pretty obvious to me that we had all come to the fellowship looking for a home. I've never stopped coming. I made some friends that day that are still very much in my life. More importantly, I found a place where I could be my authentic self. I want you to be there when it's time to scatter my ashes, and thought, hopefully, for all those years in between. And now, for something completely different, yet useful.
Well, good morning, and thank you for your interest in my hour-long...
Alfie, get to the point.
Oh, okay, this is a check.
They already know that, Alfie.
Oh, okay, well, up here is where you can...
You know what? I'm taking over. Folks, just sit yourselves down and make it out to UUFC. And please, don't forget to sign it.
And now for a moment of meditation and prayer. Take from life its coals, not its ashes. Fan the flames of love and justice. Join hands and hearts in common endeavor, and there will be no limit to what we can achieve together. blessed be. The book I read earlier, The Big Orange Splat, is one of my all-time favorites. For me, it is about finding joy in life and living out one's dreams. It's also about inspiring others to do so by example. When we keep hold of our dreams, no matter what others say, we invite others to hold on to their dreams too. Together, this fellowship can support our collective dream of a world which honors the inherent worth and dignity of each and every one of us. This fellowship can support our collective dream of a world that sees a need for more love and more justice. UUFC is one of the strong voices in this local community that stands up for these principles no matter what others say. Just as the UUFC street signs say in front of the fellowship, we support our neighbors of color. We support our neighbors who are immigrants. We support our neighbors of all and any faith. We support our LGBTQ neighbors. We support our neighbors with disabilities. Those signs mean something in this community. UUFC inspires others to dream of such a world. This week we began the stewardship drive. What we are stewards of is a collective dream of such a world. UU minister Reverend Robert Thayer tells the story about Unitarian Universalism. Ours is a free faith, but it is not free. The stewardship campaign each year is a reminder of what it means to support our own religious community instead of having somebody else support it and tell us how to live and where to go if we dissent or disobey. The weekly offering and the annual stewardship drive remind us that our fellowship belongs to us, to each of us, and as well as to the whole of us. Our worship this morning began with the sung invitation to enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter and bring your mind and your full heart with you. Rejoice and know the sadness and mourning we all go through teaches us why and how to rejoice. Come in. Come in and bring your commitment with you in the form of a pledge or a contribution. Let our gifts be the way to our commitment that is real and life-giving. In Christianity, Jesus taught his disciples, if you go to the temple and there remember that your brother or sister has aught against you, leave your gift at the altar and then go be reconciled with your brother and sister first. Upon your return, then you can make your gift at the altar. Let this spiritual direction remain uppermost in our minds. Let us give as we live in balance and harmony with our people. And in Judaism, the Hebrew prophets of Yahweh were skeptical of the temple-based religion in Jerusalem with its hereditary priesthood and its royal Davidic connection. The prophet Micah taught that his God required one thing of the gathered congregation, not burnt offerings, not offerings of valuables, and not one firstborn child. But God required to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. And that is still a timeless and relevant prophetic shift. As Unitarian Universalists, we walk in the teachings of these Abrahamic traditions, and from these traditions we walk together humbly and share the real and financial burdens for bringing justice and mercy to our world. In the 1970s, many spiritual seekers sought the book, Be Here Now for Wisdom. The author Ram Dass once remarked, "When a pickpocket sees a holy person, he sees only the guru's pockets." In other words, the pickpocket always misses the spiritual point. Perhaps a few of us have the weird sense that some gurus and religions will pick your pockets and care nothing for your spiritual growth. Yet, in our beloved community, we do not look at one another's pockets. We look into the faces and see the longing, pain, and fulfillment that lie in our own. And our giving grows out of the mystery and wonder of looking into each other's souls. The light of our chalice would soon flicker and die without the oil that nourishes the flame. And just as this flame cannot burn without oil, this religious community cannot survive or thrive without the financial as well as personal support of its members and friends. The oil that keeps the flame of our liberal religious faith alive and fuels the shared mission and ministry of this fellowship. Let us now give freely and generously, an offering to sustain and strengthen our religious community, a community of memory, hope, faith, and love, for we are the keepers of its flame that burns for justice and its dream of beloved community and its vision of a world made whole.
Sometimes stewardship campaigns feel awkward. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to ask for money? Of course, we don't just ask for money. We ask friends and members to consider the spectrum of things that make up our fellowship. If we lived in some other country where taxes supported a state church, we might not need a stewardship campaign. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. I'm thinking of more than just we should all support UUFC as best we can. What if we look at stewardship as something different? What if we look at it as a chance to do something that we realize we need to do anyway? Sure, we enjoy the benefits of our affiliation with UUFC all during the year, but we probably don't think beyond putting a little in the collection basket or supporting our benevolences. Sometimes we need this reminder. Another way to look at it is that stewardship combines all of our contributions in a powerful way. I think of it as a collection of voices singing the same song. We're stronger when we act together. Even though the soloist or choir sings beautifully, the sound of the congregation singing is more moving. We all have our favorite parts of this fellowship and what it does, and our own ways of assessing its value. What matters most is that it takes all of us to make this fellowship working together, and stewardship is just a part of that. we come to the end of our worship service today, we also arrive at the beginning of our ministry for the week ahead. We hope that this morning has been meaningful for you and that you'll leave here with a sense of connection and possibility. And now I have a few announcements to share. In honor of the many religious traditions at this time of the year that remember and celebrate those who have died, UUFC will gather on November 1st to remember our ancestors and those whom we have lost. If you would like to include names or photos of loved ones, please send them to the minister by Wednesday, October 28th. Reverend Christina is preparing a slideshow for the service. As we look ahead to the November elections and the time to follow, many are feeling anxiety. Join others for a weekly gathering for UUFC members and friends. We'll gather to connect and support each other during this time of political unrest. This will be a safe space, a place to come together, not to fuel the fires of hatred, but to find connection, wisdom, and renewal in a gathering for centering and sharing. We will open with a reading, followed by sharing and discussion as the group agrees around political issues causing our hearts concern. Wednesday evenings on October 28th, November 4th, and November 11th, 6 to 7 p.m. It may sound early to be thinking about a ministerial search committee, but we need to have one in place by late spring. 4 of them must be elected by the congregation. The board appoints 3 more to ensure diversity, such as age, gender, sexual orientation, and race or ethnicity. There are several people who've expressed interest already. The board would like to hold an election for those 4 slots at the December congregational meeting. The good news is that other than some online training, there's little to be done until summer when the committee puts together the packet for prospective candidates. Then all is quiet until early 2022 when ministers in search decide if they might be interested in Clemson. The committee narrows it down to 3 candidates and begins the search process, which usually winds up with a candidating week in late April or early May with a single candidate. If you're a member of the fellowship and would like to be considered for the search committee or to suggest someone, preferably with their permission, please contact Holly Elbrick or email to president-elect, all one word, at uufc.org. And something new is our bi-weekly parent chat. We know life is stressful and complicated right now, and this means that we all need that much more help and support from our friends. Please join us for our next bi-weekly monthly chat on Monday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. The chat is open to all our members and friends, balancing family, school, work, and other things. Bring the beverage and or snack of your choice and join us for the entire time, or just drop in for a few minutes whenever you can. And as always, links to these events and others can be found in this week's Weekly Connection. And now our Reverend Minister, Reverend Christina, will share the closing words.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace.